Welcome to the Fat Cats Rugby Podcast, bringing you candid rugby conversations, great interviews and insights into Ugandan rugby, and a touch of rugby in Africa and the world over. Fat Cats Rugby Podcast is a product of Fat Cats Media brand for all your audio-visual content needs and equipment hire. Hope you enjoy this episode. Welcome to another episode of the Fat Cats Rugby Podcast, another opportunity to have candid rugby conversations. Today, we have a particularly interesting one. And for those that don't know, I never get used to this part of saying my name, that I'm Ruben Kihumuro, but perhaps I have to say it by a mandate of starting this podcast. However, particularly interesting one because today we get a little technical, but still remain conversational in the way we want to do and bring stories to our dear viewers and the rugby community at large. With me is a very, very distinguished gentleman. I must say I have not had a lot of time to interact with you. It's usually a hi from afar, and I'm actually very glad to have you here. With me is Mr. Phillip Kiboijana. Phillip, welcome to the Fat Cats Rugby Podcast.
Thanks, Ruben. I think it's my lucky day. You're less by about 2 or 3 biggies, so the questions might even be less. So.
Yeah, even the B&B is usually happy when we are less. The consumption goes down.
The kitchen. Yeah, I get it. But my pleasure. Thank you for hosting me.
Maybe before we get into introductions and knowing who you are, just what are your thoughts about the Fat Cats podcast and what you have seen, your impressions of it? Yeah, we'd like to also know such things.
No, it's a good channel for information, rugby. If you want to keep updated, if you want to know what's happening, what's going on, what to look out for. I actually watch it, I'll be honest, not as often, but lately I've started picking interest from the time you hosted Magomo and the captains. Yeah. I watched Poshas, I watched Charlotte and Helen. Quite interesting. And you get to learn a lot about what's going on in other parts of the sport that you don't know. But also interestingly, it showed us another side of people. I didn't know a man could do more than sell land. So, and also, I mean, the difference between Dungu online, we all know who he is there, and the one on the podcast is almost two different people. So it's quite an interesting one.
Well, Bruno and Dungu have gotten their shout outs, I should say. I don't know, do you have any sub for Edwin?
No, the man is a lawyer. I fear them. They always have a comeback, so I'll keep away from him for now.
Yeah, but anyway, I would like to know, and I'm sure very many people would want to know, who is Phillip Kiboijana?
By the way, it's not one of the easiest things when you're asked.
It is a hard question. I know it's very, very hard
to describe yourself, but really, as a person, married, turned 40 in December, still adjusting to it, but the white hair gives away. Father of 2, but really a sports enthusiast. Interestingly, from a non-sporting family. I don't know where I got the drive and passion, but before I knew it, I was reffing in soccer. At my wedding, I remember there's a bunch of guys, rugby guys, that laughed when the reel went up and they saw me in Nambole. But
like you reffed at Nambole?
Yeah. That was cut short in 2007 by a health scare that had to be managed. And of course, I pulled back a bit from then. Had my fair share of rally where I took part competitively, but also a bit administratively because I somehow ended up, I don't know how, in only 2 years of being in the sport, I was asked to chair a steering committee that was mediating between the drivers' fallout and the federation at the time. But then on to, of course, rugby. It's been a massive, massive journey there from a Guardians Angels project people know about that was under Love Rugby concept. I think that's 2013 to the early stages of Fan Zone when I was still involved in that. Before I moved on to, of course, deep into Chadondo. For those 4 years, I was vice chairman. And then the local organizing committee the last 2 years for the internationals. where I actually thought that would be my last stint at rugby administration, but I guess we never know what's coming
It's
ahead.
never over until the Lord calls you, I should say. Until your final breath, there is always something that will come up. Whether you are 100 years, I think that's it
True.
for everyone that has a bit of ambition in them.
True. The people who say never knew what they were saying. So
yeah, but anyway, that's very elaborate. I think the thing that catches my mind, like from a non-sporting family, and somehow you've partaken in all those sports. Let's first talk a little bit about the racing bit of it. How did that even happen?
I'd always been a car fanatic. I'd
Mm.
always been a rally fanatic from childhood. I loved cars. I loved it. And somehow, about the time, I said, you know what? I'll give it a shot. I had a friend who had always also loved it called John Consta. So at the time, we formed Consta Racing Team and said, you know what? It's an expensive sport, but we'll go Juakali. So we got a guy who showed us he can build a car locally from scratch,
Wow.
roll cage, everything, import a few parts. Said we are learning. We are part of the people who enjoyed Namamve before it became tarmacked and quite heavy on traffic. It was our Sunday morning and Saturday morning practice place. But yeah, and eventually got into the sport, had my shots at it, left an interesting record of having not completed a rally in 2 years. The one they thought was the closest shot at it is with 2 sections to go. I came back on 3 tires. But again, it's the thrill of the sport. It's what we'd look forward to.
Yeah. And with officiation in football, what would be ideally your biggest milestone in that regard?
I really can't say it went that far, but also I can say it groomed me as a person in many ways. And I was honored to have around me friends and mentors who really went to the top. You've heard of Ali Tomusange, who went to the World Cup. Fred Mufta, a good friend of mine. Ronnie Kalema was also, he's currently with FUFA. He's working with the FUFA executive. Brian Miro, he was also a FIFA ref there. So those guys really put in for me. I did a push. Cooper test, hectic pass, did a couple of games. But I remember part of the trainings that would also mentor me as a person. I remember one time I warned a player. It was this rainy day. I think that game was at the near Uma Showgrounds. There used to be a pitch there.
Yeah,
and it was a warm-up before a KCCA game. I remember what they were playing, but it was a junior side. And I remember warning a player about, while I understand it's rainy and rough, but he needs to watch his tackles and all. And he said to me, look, I do my part, you do yours. And I let it go. And 10 minutes later, he did it again. And I said, dude, when I called him, talk to him, he said, I do what you want. So I gave him a straight red. And I remember being asked after the game by Muftan saying, your report will determine if you are right or wrong. And indeed, the team appealed the red because they said it was his first offense and it should have been a yellow to warn him it wasn't as serious, only to reach and they were told the red was for insubordination, which is in the rules, the way you deal with an official and all. But again, at the end of the day, they tell you, but also how you manage those guys, the patience and all. It makes you appreciate sport as a person as well.
That's true. And maybe now, just from that angle, diving into our dear sport, rugby. Have you? I don't think now you're at that capacity anymore. But had you ever thought about maybe officiation in rugby and? Or have you ever tried to have a conversation with the rugby referee management and the referees themselves on maybe how to manage this game?
Yeah, I did. I mean, everyone, at a certain point, you want to put your foot in. I remember there's a time I think Simon Mutama seemed the god of refs way back before even Ramsey started. And I remember some friends of mine, like the David Mutakas, talking about those days, how you'd laugh at Ramsey in his early days, but the guy turned out to be one of the best. And anyone would have wanted to give a shot, but like I told you, the time I pulled out of Reading, reffing, I had a bit of a health scare. I'm actually a cancer survivor, so I was told at a certain point, you need to take it slow for some years. So, and you sit out 4 or 5 years. After that, it's hard to go back
It's
to
very
anything.
hard. Very hard.
So that's where I said, look, I'll do a stint in motorsport. It's hectic in its own way, but you and the roll cage and your co-driver. There's no one who is going to attempt to bash you anything.
Yeah.
Apart from you bashing yourself.
You running into a tree
so
or
I had
something.
to take it calm, and somehow the passion drove me more into administration.
So, rugby, how did that story really start?
There's a friend of mine called Emmanuel Biraro. I call him Dipo. Some know him, he's really wild. So I was talking to him about our Manama Sagali days and how a few guys tried starting it there and it didn't pull off, and how I missed it and it looked quite interesting. And he said, you know what, why don't you come and when I'm going for training and, just tag along. And that's when he was Black Pirates. It was still being formed early days. And then I would say from that time, there was no looking back. The next thing, it was me quarreling with him about not showing up and me being there more than he was. But, and just from then, I will tell you, it went on and on and on and on. So.
And particularly with Chadondo, I don't know if, of course, there were not as many rugby clubs, I should say, as they are now. But what was the choice to go to Chadondo? Why not Kampala Rugby Club at the time, or perhaps any other rugby affiliated place that was in the country?
So it's one, I loved how it was more of a communal setting. Yeah, you'd go to Chadondo, and the difference at the time between Chadondo and Legends is you had all these little boys running around. All these little kids throwing a ball, and you could see they're from the neighborhood. Yeah. But also there was a strong story on it. I mean, guys waking up and clearing a whole place for a pitch. The Chadondo, some of us started walking into 2003 early years. As I'll actually take you back. Someone once phoned me. We all know Chadondo has its nightlife. So,
very popular nightlife.
Very popular nightlife. So in one of the conversations there, I remember someone brought, when I was vice chairman, and that was in my first year, someone brought a person to meet me upstairs, introduced, and said she's my guest, but she had a complaint. And she said, and I said, what's the complaint? He said, the toilets. And I said, look, we know it's not the most convenient. They were in the containers there. And what?
Oh, those toilets, Banangi.
Yeah, but we said it's a journey and we'll get better. And I remember she asked me, why are you sure about that? And I said, look, Chadondo started with one portal for ladies. The guys used to sort yourselves anyway. That was the status quo at one point. So I said, now that we have 2 for ladies and 2 for guys, is a journey. And if it's continuous growth, then I told her, look, maybe one day there'll be a block, which later happened. So, but it's that passion of being part of a growth story that drove me to it. And then there was also something about the Heathens team. They'd lost it then. It's coming back now. These guys had an identity everywhere you went. Some of the young guys, if Dungu was here, or people like Sama interact with, might not know some of these bars, or might, but like Stakeout, you'd go to Stakeout and you'd walk in and they are the ones. Whether it's a Saturday night or what, they've won the game, they're in the tracksuits, but you could see a team, you could tell a team, and it's something that you'd want to get attached to. And it's how I started following, watching them, got involved into Chadondo, but also with the whole Guardian Angels Project fan zone as at different grounds at the time. And somehow I felt most comfortable there. It felt like there's not too much of an expectation from you. It was like a home away from home, if I could say.
That's great. Just to be clear, the sportsman in you never tried to tempt you into playing rugby at any one point?
No, it didn't go beyond a few touch sessions or this or that. It didn't at all.
Well, that is good.
But again, it's because as a bit cautious. There's I think I had healed physically, but I don't think I had mentally and psychologically. So as cautious about very many things I was doing.
Yeah. So by the time you actually started watching this game, tell us about the league then. People, we see, personally, I've also started realizing that I might be becoming old because I see so many new, which we are always excited to see so many new fans, yes. Yeah. But I see so many new young fans talking about some of the young players and whatnot, and the discussions. And now it's all online and the social media banter. But then, I just want to know how the league was then.
Yeah.
How many was it? Was it a 6-man league? Which were the teams? Who was your favorite player at the time?
I don't want to peg it to one, and I know Heathens guys might beat me, but there's a time you looked at the back line of Cobbs. Alan Mosoke, Simon Wakabi, Timothy Modola, Stone, Edmond, and Ad Rubas in there. And Ad Rubas in there. Those guys, even the day you are playing against them, you'd enjoy them instead of supporting you.
By mistake, you find yourself celebrating.
That's why I can't peg it to one. But it was quite the thing. But even coming down to Heathens, over the years, they've been some interesting and really not mentioned players. One of the ones is Benon Chiza. I think is one of the best fullbacks I've seen, and not many. I don't think he was given the due recognition he deserved. But people like Brian Tabaruka, I don't know how that man was still playing 2 years ago. Or 3 years ago. It's something else, but he was like the safest hands I think I've seen in the game.
Better than Timothy Kisiga?
I would say better. There are two different generations, but I don't remember a time you were worried about Tindi when he was under that high ball.
Interesting. So, from the management side of things, yes, we understood that you got into management and it's perhaps something that you're passionate about as well. How, from someone that came to support Heathens, just enjoy perhaps the nightlife of Chadondo as well and just be part of the sport, how did now you get into the whole kavuyo of, okay, now I'm in Chadondo management?
Yeah. So, passion is dangerous. And I keep telling people, be worried. And I tell people we all have a passion. Some don't know when they have it. Some take long to discover it, but it's dangerous. I remember there was a time, I don't remember if it was the Bleak administration, who was supposed to have a national team traveling. I think it was Sevens. And people asking about preparation and travels and all. And people said, look, there's no money. We can't do much. I said, but why? We can start somewhere. We all always have to wait for something big. And I remember then it's when we did the Guardian Angels thing under Love Rugby. I talked to Ian Walker then. Through the idea team, what would you feel about funding a player for training? He said, look, I can even take two. That's $250 each. That's $500. And I remember George Umbalu came on board, a couple of people. The next thing is out of about 14 players. 12 were covered, but there was one player who had about 4 people. And that's how we distributed the two. Take a wild guess who that was. Though young then.
I don't want to guess. Excuse me on that one.
There was a scamper for a Yango juice. And those were his early days. But from then I got heavily involved. As you know, Godwin is also my friend. Yes. And at the time that started Fan Zone and got involved in Fan Zone. And that's when I did a stint as I'm calling it CEO, but I usually say headed Fan Zone. Then for about 3 years. And that's when we started the whole activations, the vibes. Because before that, you'd get into a game, watch it, it's quiet, you walk off and leave. So there was no commentary, there was nothing. And yet we felt rugby was really a social sport. There are guys where it was plot. Saturday afternoon, what am I doing? Go to the rugby club. We felt that's an opportunity. They need to learn what's going on the pitch as well. And that's how the whole concept of emceeing started at these games. Then it grew bigger. Then Nile came in. Then it grew bigger. But out of that drive, through that and Fan Zone, I think there were people watching. And I'll be honest, it will shock many. One day I'm in Iban at the farm then doing some work and I receive a call from Tolbert Onyango. Says, where are you? I said, I'm up country. Why? It's like, we need to talk. I'm like, why is Toli looking for me?
What have you done?
What have I done? He's not a man of many words.
Yeah, I know.
You're cautious when he's looking for you. You can't interrogate him on phone. So I said, look, I'll be around over the weekend. We'll talk after the game. And we go to the game. I watch after the game. I'm like, so what's up? You called me. He's like, yeah, Chadondo has elections coming up. I'm like, yeah, what's with that? He's like, no, you're running. I'm like, for what?
He just told you. So by the way, you're
Yeah,
running.
by the way, you're running. I said, look, dude, what's going on here? So initially I thought, okay, maybe committee member or something. And I said, yeah, I can put in my shift. So I asked him why. He's like, I've seen your involvement with the Guardian Angels projects, Fan Zone, and I really think beyond you being a fan here and all, I feel we could do something.
Yeah.
And I said, well, I'm happy. I'll consider like committee member. Interestingly, that evening I meet late Sogi, Robert Seguya. He's also a very curious mind. He's like, have you been a bit lost? I said, as up country. He's like, I'm surprised to see you today. I said, no, I came in for the game, but I need to talk to Tolbert about what? To talk to Tolbert, sorry. And he says, oh, Tolly, about what? I'm like, Chadondo elections. And he says, oh, yeah, you need to run. So I'm like, no, I told him I'm going to give it a thought. I'll come in committee member. And Sogi says, no. We need you at the top. You're going for chairman. And I look at him like, Sogi, I can't start there. But let's think about it. So somehow the conversation now starts. And eventually David was my friend as well. And he comes to me, he's like, I'm also getting into this Chadondo thing, so let's go do it. And eventually we just say, okay, chairman, vice chairman, let's start, do what we can. It was having a sort of shift then. There's when Chadondo had that slump. It had sort of become it was not so active. A lot of things were struggling. And I remember we said there was intention from the shareholders to say, how do we revive it? How do we get it vibrant again? And that was one of the first tasks on who's coming in and get the right people in the right places. Who can we identify? Because it was so down that even when they were announcing like AGM, there were hardly any people putting up their hands, to say, let's run it. So we got in. I remember David was chairman as vice. Interesting committee. It had Brian on it, Tabaruka. It had Magona, Rachel Doy, Geraldine Akubu. It was quite, I think Jimmy Dotton, but it was quite the committee. And I think we'd come in at the back of Andrew Ward, who had moved to URIU.
Yeah.
So our first task was to really add life to Chadondo. Get the teams performing and better, but get the club also in a better place as a facility.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. So, looking at that timeline where you served in management at Chadondo, what would your biggest milestone be in that regard?
Whenever people ask, I list them. Now you want me to get?
Are they that many like that?
No, they are not. They are not that many, but they are interesting. But me, the biggest was I learned the need for structure. And that's when we're intentional about, for example, societies.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you've heard, even on this podcast, people have come and said Chadondo refs. But you know where that phrase came from?
Where did it come from?
Because at one point, Chadondo had the most refs.
I think it still does, doesn't it?
It still does. So it was a case of encouraging people to come in. I remember we did a number of coaching courses, level 1, level 2. We were encouraging and pushing people like Saddam, let's form the TM society so that you have at least 10 proper trained TMs, each team has an assistant, or if one is away, someone can fill in. Dr. Stephen Buyong, I remember, was tasked to formulate the medical society.
Yeah.
But even the split in terms of management, to break away where, for example, Toli is the club manager and has his structure, the accountant he works with, and to run the facility, and it's away from the ExCom and also having oversight kind of thing. So it sort of made decision-making easy for the club. What do we want to do in this 1 year? These are the things. Where do you want to be in 4? These are the things. And then you plan for them around that.
Yeah. So
me, it would be that. We didn't get it 100%, but I tell people who of us had that for a pass mark in school. No, but I would put it at a good 85%.
Yeah.
Because we did see the impact. There were a lot of Chadondo people in medical, in coaching, in reffing. So there was good progress there.
Yeah, that's great. Maybe before we continue, I just want our viewers to know that we are at the beautiful Fred and Winnie B&B. And you can see we are here just in a beautiful compound. But other things that you need to know about the Fred and Winnie B&B, the 10 self-contained private bedrooms, a fully equipped kitchen, power backup system, Wi-Fi, laundry services, a chef to cater to you every meal, a sumptuous buffet breakfast with a choice of selected tropical fruits and juice. Pick up and drop off to and from Entebbe International Airport, as well as local transportation for getting around or for upcountry can be arranged if booked in advance. And for that, you have to call 0778-933-559. Ideally, just let them know that the Fat Cat sent you and you get some amazing discounts. Lots of people that have reached out in March, as we come to the end of March, it has been really, really good, and we appreciate those. And for those that haven't, please take the time to come around. You're also welcome to perhaps reach out to the Fat Cats and we can just give you a tour of the place. That is also something that we can do. You never know, you may have someone coming into the country, maybe relatives coming into town, and you need somewhere to perhaps have them stay that is quite respectable. So think about the Fred and Winnie B&B. So
you need to add ambience to that list.
Ambience.
You don't talk about it as a beautiful setting. The garden and all.
Speaking
it's
of
amazing.
ambience, in February, one of our conversations was about where to take, in case you wanted to, it was about Valentine's anyway, but in case you wanted to take someone, what was the perfect ambience to take a lady? And then Dungu told us that...
I'm worried already.
Dungu told us that for him, he prefers taking his girls to Chadondo because it has the perfect ambience. Do you agree with that?
Yeah.
Would you take a lady to Chadondo for a Valentine's treat?
Let me tell you. Like someone put it recently on Twitter. You people want to buy a different ambience. We'll end up in a very expensive place. Yet you can take her to eat the best chigere. I mean, if Dungu is dating a chick, she knows what Dungu loves. So it's with Michael, it's with the Mama Kanyanya there. So she'll be part of the story. He'll take. The man was right, but yeah, Chadondo. I believe you would have a very good date in Chadondo. By the way,
definitely. And I think one of my best times at Chadondo was the Rugby Africa Sevens.
Interesting
and
tournament.
The whole park. Of course, I have my reservations here and there because of the alcohol.
Are you one of the guys? I know someone who walked in, entered the fun park, and left about 7 hours later. He didn't go further than the fun park.
He stopped at the
He
fun
watched
park.
everything on big screen.
No, but it was a really great thing from the different food points to the entertainment afterwards. I mean, it was the real envision or the epitome of rugby is not just what's on the pitch, but rugby is a lifestyle.
Yes.
I think I will commend you guys for that. And also the day-to situation of trying to make sure that pitch as dry as possible.
Aye. But to both points, and you raise very good, valid points.
Yeah.
So the time we pushed for night games a lot in Chadondo. I think it was 2 years of me pleading sponsors, people pitching, giving the idea. Guys were hesitant. But you see, we have to make sport about experience as well.
Yeah.
And I remember telling people, we need to try. People are saying, what if the lights fail? What if this happens? I said, you can't know. You have to start somewhere.
Yeah.
If it fails, we try again. And painfully, while I pushed for floodlights for 2 years, for 15s, the approval came in. I was so excited. I had to run out of the country briefly, but somehow the return journey, there was a strike by SAA. So long story short, I didn't watch the first floodlight ever.
Wow.
After fighting for it for 2 years. I was in an airport lounge close to tears. But it was interesting, and it showed what we had been chasing. If I remember well, we had an average of about 2,300 ticket sales.
Wow.
And so you're not counting accreditation, you're not counting officials, you're not counting players who have entered free or the teams or what. So it could have been about 3,000 average crowd. The year before, the biggest international had about 1,900 ticket sales.
Yeah.
So you had a local game upping an international's presence. But why? Because you've offered people something different. And that's one of the things I was proud about in our tenure in Chadondo. The floodlights games, which I really hope come back and better. Of course, we learn how can the lighting be better, how can the ambience be better, but also to the first fun park themes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we noticed people enjoy it. Adds life to everything. You
It
have
adds
fun
life.
on the game. You have fun after the game.
Yeah, definitely. And actually, as we are heading towards Easter, one of the things I was thinking about was we used to have floodlights on Good Friday. I remember there was Good Friday rugby and other games. I don't know what
Yeah.
happened to the floodlights. What happened to that concept?
I think
What
that
stopped it?
that was for the sevens,
Mm,
and it was actually a group of individuals that would come in and say, "Look, we want to hire the facility." But I remember we had the policy then would say if it's rugby related, you
mm,
won't pay for the venue.
mm.
So because it's helping the sport, it's giving players an
Yeah.
opportunity, and that's how we would partner with them. But if it was really their concept, but and it would be a one-off for that day. But as our drive was to include this in the calendar to
Yeah.
make it something bigger. And I remember, unfortunately, by the time uh, there was the disruption of COVID and also came in, we were having discussions with Solomon Sendage of Kings Park, and we had actually come to an agreement around how we could share the lights. And they were meant to start setting up the platforms,
Yeah.
because there's the platforms they sit on, but otherwise then you can transfer them. It's 2 days between taking them down and taking them up. So we said the key thing is sharing that cost, because it was also not a small cost. But we were lucky that we're also getting the lights free, which many don't know. From they're called Kampala Old Boys, but not Cobbs Rugby. These are the cricket guys.
Oh,
Yeah.
they are
So
different. Eh?
so their season was way different from ours. So we noticed there's a time they had the lights doing nothing for about 8 months.
Yeah.
And that's when we, through Sanjeev Patel, one of the members in Chadondo, had a discussion with them. They said, no, you can just pay the cost for, putting them up. We are a sport, we all need to grow. And that's how we managed to start.
Yeah.
So the idea with Solomon was as well share the cost, so that we say in a month, if there are 3 floodlights games, have 2 in one venue, and if there are 4, split them 2-2. Because also people having it only in one venue wasn't good. It grows just a single venue.
Yes.
So, and I hope really between the management of both sides, it's a discussion they can revive, because I would be excited to go to Kings Park on a Friday at 8 p.m. to watch a game.
I think it would be really massive.
Yep.
Yeah. But anyway, that's great. Away from Chadondo, I want to pick your brain.
Yeah.
What are your thoughts on the state of rugby in Uganda at the moment?
This is an answer that gets many off guard. I actually think it's in a good place.
Really?
Yes.
Would you care to expound on that?
Rugby has had its challenges, but let's also appreciate, in relation to the growth of sports in this country, rugby has had a good journey. It's in terms of delivery, of performance, competition, and all. Yes, yeah. In terms of making sure tournaments that are meant to happen, yes, there was the issue of the 2 internationals cancelled.
Yeah.
But I don't think there's any, apart from COVID, you'd say a league didn't happen. You'd say the sevens didn't happen, So me, the key thing, and I told people, I'm looking at it 2 ways. What is there now that really needs improvement? And then what can we bring in also to better?
Okay.
Yeah, because I don't want to. I wouldn't say it's doing very badly. No, it's a case of getting a number of things right. Because we are at a level that if we do not correct that, then we are going to go on a downward trend. Because everything has a tipping point.
Yeah.
And I feel like rugby is actually getting to that tipping point where you need to stop depending on individuals, for example, but letting a structure work kind of thing. And if we don't address it, then you find that you will kill even the progress you've made in the last 2-3 years.
Okay, that's interesting. So why now? Why put your heart there? Why offer yourself for service at this moment?
Yeah, why?
Maybe for those that don't know, he's attempting to stand for URU, or Uganda Rugby Union president.
I'm not attempting to start. I've actually stood.
Oh, okay. Just to make it
I came
clear.
out and announced. So
Yeah.
So far, the only candidate was officially announced. I don't know
Others
if I'm
are still-
unopposed.
They told us that
I don't see them coming
many
out.
of the rugby conversations and decisions are made in the bar. So
Yeah.
maybe the others are still passing their manifestos through the respective club grounds and then the bars that are affiliated with them.
Please remind me, after this why, I would like to start there, just where you've stopped.
Okay.
On the bar talk.
We'll put a pin
Yes,
in that.
yes. Let's do the why
Mm.
and kick off there. But the why is so I've been, like I've said, I've been in administration and sport rugby for quite some time.
Yeah.
The rumor, I said it when I was declaring, came out 4 years ago. People thought I was going to stand. President himself asked me. I said, no, I'm not. I said, are you sure? I said, yeah. I said, but will you work with me? I said, yeah, I have no problem. And indeed, I worked with him because I was still in Chadondo for those 2 years. The time I came out of Chadondo, he said, can we work more together? I said, yeah, I'm happy to. That's why I get into local organizing committee chairman for the internationals. But as we walked that journey, there's a lot of things that I kept feeling we could correct. At one point, they started terming me the Lugezi Gezi Luzungu person. Because I was always saying, guys, this is wrong. Why don't we do this? Guys, why don't we do this way? Guys, why don't we do this way? You know? And some of them came to bite me directly, painfully. For example, I stood live on TV on a Friday, 8 a.m., and told people how we are ready for the game on Saturday. Uganda is hosting Zim. Everyone should come. People had been buying tickets online.
Yeah.
5 minutes after the interview, I'm told the game is off. You know, you self-reflect as you're like, I just stood and promised people and gave a guarantee. And now it's all not there.
Yeah.
You know, you start to self-reflect. And it went off some of the things I'd been talking about. Yeah. And like operational structures. Yeah. So there's the ExCom that should be supervisory. There's the HQ secretariat that should be operational. Who is overstepping? Who is making? Who failed to do? How didn't we catch this 2 weeks before, for example? At what point do you say, guys, we've not seen your air tickets, we've not seen your bookings? You know, even Kenya, we got to know about a week too, but why? You can actually know a month too at the worst case and mitigate, because I can imagine the double losses legends made, especially for Zim. They had set up the scaffolding, ads had been running, people had bought tickets, they'd signed partnerships, service providers had been booked, they'd also bought things they are going to use. You know, it's a whole ecosystem that's affected.
Yeah.
But it's some of those weaknesses and challenges that I said, look, I have cried about, I have mentioned them, I have complained about them. Maybe I try and do something about them myself. And I'm not pegging it to me. No, it's to say, work with the ExCom to say this is the direction. Work with the clubs to say this is the direction, you know. But to the why, it's mainly knowing that I've been in the system much as it isn't inside, seeing how it works, knowing the challenges, and knowing the things we can correct to get better, but also to say, you know what, one last run at it.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how was that conversation with Tonchu?
I've had conversations with Tonchu in all sorts of circumstances, at vigils, at weddings, it's the journey we come. But that's one of the hardest conversations I've ever had with him. But I had promised him that, look, if I make up my mind, you will be the first to know. And you know, when there's a rumor, it starts moving faster than you.
Yeah.
Even I took about 3 weeks off as up country. I love spending time in Uganda when I can. But it was partly to self-reflect and say, you know, this is not an easy thing, really, should I? And I remember even around the time guys asked, and he met a good friend to both of us and said to him, do you know if Phillip is running? And he said, well, I know. He said if he makes up his mind, he'll be one of the first people to know. And indeed, I met him. One of the first things I did is I asked him why he's running. He gave me his reasons. We debated them. He asked me why I'm running. I gave him mine. We debated them as well. And then I said, look, I wish you the best of luck. I hope we can get out of it. No hard feelings, not personal. And the sport wins. Let everyone share the brilliant ideas they have. And at the end of the day, it's whoever goes through, hopefully the other can still work with them.
Yeah.
Because we have to put the sport first is the thing.
Yeah. So, from what we had put a pin in
That one.
regards to the the bars, the bar conversations, and everything,
Yeah.
what did you want to say about that?
So, and I was
Mm.
very happy when I'm still trying to figure out why it's Chimeze that reached out to me about
Why is
he's not
that?
a fat cat. You know
Usually,
this whole thing.
uh-huh.
but but it's Chimeze who called me and said, "Yo, we need to host you." Fat cats. I said,
Chimaze is
Chimeze,
one of our
fat
very
cats.
own.
Ah,
From afar, but one of our very own.
interesting. But
Mm.
when he reached out, if you asked him, I actually said, "Thank you, I'm honored." I didn't say no this time. What? Because I believe, and why, and which is why I also went and announced this on TV.
Mm.
Is people are asking me the same. It's club officials who vote, maybe 40, 49 clubs. Why are you talking to everyone? And I
Exactly.
said, look, these club officials are voted in to represent a bigger group of people.
Mm.
They are mandated by someone.
Yeah.
They might not have the time to tell those guys, but if I have an opportunity to tell those guys, I will. And I said, if you say I'm wrong, then you're telling me that the players out there, the fans out there, the sponsors, the wider stakeholders
Yeah.
are people we shouldn't address. I am not asking to be president and work with an excom that is going to work for the 49 club leaders. You're asking to be president to work with an excom to work with the club leaders to deliver for rugby. So every stakeholder in rugby to me needs to listen to the message.
Yeah.
Whether it's a border guy who parks at Chadon and watches the game while waiting, whether it's Michael's Pork guy, whether it's the pitch at what's his name, Daudi at Legends, pitch maintenance,
Mm.
all of them are part of the rugby fraternity. But to that, look at the players; they are the biggest bets. Who should be the first person to buy in and say you're good for me? It's
Yeah.
that guy. So and this is why we need to reach out. But then I also told them in life, when it comes to marketing and awareness, every opportunity you have to get someone to know what you're about, take it. This campaign should be something we use to get new people to know about rugby, to get new sponsors to think about rugby, to get new partners to think about rugby. There's a guy out there who will be listening to Fat Cats and has never watched rugby.
Exactly.
And because of an election conversation, he says, you know what, these guys are doing something right. There's a good story, and he'll come. So it's why I'm not taking it to the bad talk it has been, but it's why I'm doing a balance of both. I'm meeting the club officials, but I'm also using the opportunity to speak to every stakeholder in rugby. And what I loved about the time I announced on TV is after I had so many messages of people with suggestions, because you can never know everything. There were guys coming in and saying, let's do A, B, C, D. But even today on Fat Cats podcast, I will leave with something new I've learned. You'll probably ask me about something and then I'll give my answer and you'll have your opinion on it. I've taken something away from it that could also help if I came in. So I think it's the media is a very, very strong platform for the sport that we should never undermine or underlook. So I totally disagree with you're overdoing it. Go to the Kabbalah and talk there. No. I will not do that. I would rather not run because I would be unfair to the sport.
Yeah. What are your thoughts about the voting system? There have been a lot of discussions about the voting system and how perhaps sometimes it's hard to have change with the system being in that some people you seem to have more voting rights, or let me say points, than others because of perhaps having a rugby ground, having a women's team. And yet we all teams are supposed to be stakeholders in this thing. All teams perhaps are supposed to feel like they're well represented and well listened to. What are your thoughts about the voting system? Do you think it has been working for years, but don't you think it needs some tweaking, or you think it's fine the way it is?
Really, I think it's a case of using it the right way. At times, it's not the system, but it's how people want to use it.
Yes.
And me, the issue with the voting system is where you'll find cases of you didn't know about this club, but all of a sudden membership is paid or it's adopted, and you're thinking, why now?
Yeah.
But in terms of the number of votes, for example, it's the same number of votes per team. And then also, if you have a ladies' team, that ladies' team has its votes, which I think is good. They need to have a say in it. If there is a ground, it has its vote, which I think is good. It has to have a say in it. So some of these things should actually motivate people than deter them. So if I was a team and it's just me and have my 2 votes, but then I figure if I have a junior side, those are 2. If I have a ladies, those are 2. And they are formed. Yes, it shouldn't be for voting, but also the sport has grown. But also, if you have them and each has its 2 votes, they are all bringing their voice to the table.
Yeah.
So me, I think it's about not misusing the system or the structure works. Like I was telling people, I think FUBA announced in November that its elections were in March. And AGA Cricket, I think, announced around Jan. They had theirs as well. When did we announce ours? I don't know if it's because I came out. I mean, all of a sudden, when is AGM? When is AGM? It's not.
Yeah.
But if we were to be fair to the system, have the announcement 3 months. Some people don't need only a month to make up their minds. There's a guy who, if he knew 3 months back, he would have made these plans different in a way that he's in this race. But then you announce, then say when the AGM will be, say the voting criteria, share a list. If right now, if you ask anyone who are the clubs and members voting,
exactly,
you wouldn't get it. It's like a
Yeah.
state secret, you know.
Yeah.
So, but it's because we are not using the system. I know that the system is wrong. So I really don't think it has so much of an issue that it needs a revamp. But I think it's a case of correcting the nitty-gritties and using it right.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on one thing there. Okay, on a lot of things, yes, but the one thing that that really caught my attention was the communication bit of it. I think that is my biggest problem with the systems in rugby, from the union itself to the clubs, also, that we have failed to understand how communication works. I mean, up until recently, that is when I knew that we're having URU elections happening.
Yes.
But so many things we were even talking about last week, from Ginger Hippos receiving the money and nothing was announced. And then all of a sudden, when Fat Cats put out a post about an unpopular opinion and a fan complained, that is when the union was like, we need to address this.
Yeah.
So why do our authorities have to put themselves in such a situation and not control the narrative? That has been one of my biggest things. And then we have also our club chairman who complain, money, we have not received money. When they receive money, you will never hear a single word.
They will not announce that it has
They're
come.
more quiet than a cemetery.
Yeah.
So that bothers me so much. And it makes us ask questions and be like, Fachi, why am I making noise or asking or fighting for these guys when they can't even be accountable?
Exactly. And you've used the right word at the end. I'll start there. So it's something I mentioned a couple of times. So accountability is what builds consensus. Every time you say accountability, people think money. No, because otherwise you limit it to, hey, we got 50 million, this is how we spent it. It's not accountability.
Yeah.
So, and you see, if people also, to the money itself, if they can't trust you with their vision, they can't trust you with their funds.
Yeah.
And the thing is, key to accountability, let me put it this way, as an EXCOM, one of the first things I would tell them is accountability is what gives us the license to operate. And these clubs have so much power that they don't know it. For example, if we are not being accountable, and not just funds, but in terms of what we are doing, there could be an SGM. It could be a vote of no confidence. You could go out. But also, there's the plan B that Ugandans take, and it's a general thing of life, even with politics, outside rugby, the real politics, is people sit back and say, it's your thing, we'll wait for you to leave. So the next thing is you're hearing there was an AGM, it didn't happen due to lack of quorum. Why in the world would a federation AGM be aborted due to lack of quorum? There is a strong, I used to tell people, we look at it lightly, but there's when you have to go and sense check. Say why? Because that means people at a place, they've lost faith in you, don't trust in you, are not interested in listening to you. AGM aborted, we'll have SGM. AGM aborted, we'll have SGM. I think it happened like twice in 2 years. Yeah. And that's the thing. And me, to get that right, get in. As an EXCOM, while you do your strategy, involve the clubs. You can have the session with the club officials. They have their input to the strategy.
Yeah.
All of you align and say, this is our 4-year strategy. And that's why I'm telling many people, I will say what I think we need to do, but I will not come with a strategy. Because it's not a one-man show. It's not my vision how to run rugby. It's a collective thing. So we sit and everyone on the table agrees this is how we need to walk this 4-year journey.
Yeah.
But then, okay, there are priorities. So year one, we have between Jan and December, we have to achieve this. If you agree that a proper Fed should come back in March and say for quarter one, we had these 10 things to achieve. This is how it went. If they get 7, it's okay. If they get 5, it's okay. Like I said, our pass mark in school was never 100%. Let's be fair. If you get the 7, say the 3 have been moved ahead because of A, B, C, D.
Yes.
Quarter 2 is this. Yeah. Quarter 2 comes, same process. Quarter 3 is this, same process. You'll find that you're not going to be in a situation where your clubs, why are you taking our players? No, they know. You've been working together. You've been in a discussion. When are we getting money? No, they know. It came. What has it done? They know. Because you see, you're not just coming to account for funds, but you're accounting for everything you're supposed to deliver on.
Yeah.
And this is where working closely with those guys is key. This is where communication is key. What is the pain in having a monthly newsletter?
Exactly.
Let every stakeholder know what's happening. There is no harm. What has happened, what's going to happen. What has happened, what's going to happen. It's an easy thing. And what the plans are. So to your point, communication, while it looks small, is a big hindrance in all this. And indeed, in not having communication is where you hide things like not having accountability, even for the funds. And yet, at times, you might find, by the way, it's not that the funds were not used for the right thing, but because people do not know what they were used for, they will say, you guys, they will say, you guys, you're taking our money, you're eating our money. But I don't want to believe there are rugby lovers who stood up and went into administration to eat money. It could be one or two, but even it could be a one-off. So I think the bigger issue is the communication and working closely together.
Yeah, okay, that's actually very interesting. And I think as we come to the second and final part of this conversation, which has really been insightful in a lot of ways, why you talked about faith, and I think that's an important thing. Bringing faith back amongst clubs, amongst fans, amongst stakeholders in the game. Why should people have faith in you rather than continue with Tonchu? Maybe they know that there's this saying that better the devil you know
than the one you don't know.
Yeah. So why you? What is there that you? Maybe you can just give us an overview.
I won't say why they should have it in me over. As on my private, I call him Tonchu here. I'll address him as Godwin Kayangwe. He's still our president.
I want to come out and be honest about this. Yeah. That I looked for. I know the name.
You looked
I looked for it in my mind, but I was like Tonchu, because that is what
it will happen.
Current Uganda Rugby Union President Godwin Kayangwe.
Yes.
I apologize for the Tonchu bit, but
no worries. So I won't say why me over him. I will say what I'm bringing to the table.
Yeah.
He will also go and say what he's bringing to the table. We
hope to have him as well.
It's not yet announced. Or I send him a WhatsApp. Don't know what's going on. But I might be here tense when I'm opposed. Yeah? But I digress. But to that question is why I would say me is, so there's 4 pillars I'm looking at. One is structures. And structures is what's the mandate of Exco. And are they working within that mandate?
Yeah.
What's the mandate of the HQ? Is it doing its part? How do we bring in the societies, the regions, and everyone? Yeah. So between Exco at advisory and supervision level and HQ at operational level, how do these structures work? Yeah. So for example, and to what I spoke to earlier, how do we get a game cancelled the day before it should happen from a visiting foreign country? There's a clear gap there. I don't know. I've never seen a statement someone should have been answerable.
But there's no statement, and I will honestly say this. We personally, as the Fat Cats, we bought about 10 tickets. Some were for giveaways, some were ours, of course. But we have never gotten a refund or nothing, no explanation. That just died down somewhere
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah. And you see, that's the thing I'm telling you, because in there, no one came out. But is it a case of between XCOM and HQ? They also don't know who's answerable, because you'd think for NSN covers, but we should have had at least a proper.
Yeah.
But that didn't happen. So unfortunately, but then also it shows you the weaknesses in structure,
Yeah.
and that's why I say not everything is money. Some things are about how you're structured, how you're operating. Yeah, but even to structure, go to the technical arm. I keep giving people an example. Why do we have fixtures for the league, then finish, then wait, then 2 weeks, you get an announcement, 7 starting the other weekend.
Yeah, by that
then,
thing.
Then wait, then Uganda Cup. When do clubs get to plan? Why can't we have why can't we have a whole year of activities?
Because up to now we don't know what's going to happen for the national team. We don't have that. We're not even sure about Elgon Cup, which we used to be sure about.
Yeah. So dates can change, but you can have a bare minimum you're working with that guides it. Because some will say internationals, but honestly, we have more than 2-3 internationals in a year. No. So it's that. But then the second one is, of course, away from structure, is commercialization of the sport.
Yeah.
I tell people this. I said it somewhere. Now this was proper Bala talk to earlier. And someone laughed. And I said, but it's serious. Things like intellectual property rights. You know, if some guy woke up and went and signed with someone that they've sponsored our national team and they give him 200 million, and you go and say you're not allowed, he can take you to court.
Yes, he can.
He can. Those are some of the things we are not looking at seriously, but even in terms of anyone can wake up and make a URU shirt and sell anywhere on the street in the games.
Yeah.
Merchandising. You don't even need to advertise and say, guys, we are looking for guys to do merchandising. But it's commercialization. One is your properties, branding them, owning them. But even the national teams, how do we make them brands? I keep giving the example. Dongo is not here. He would have been the happiest. South Africa. They summon a player. Yeah? And people have told me I use extreme examples. But you see, look at the best and say, how do we work to get there? It can take us 10 years, but we know that's where we are going to be like that person.
Yeah.
South Africa, they summon a player to the national team. In the village, they throw a bash. He's not even had the first cap. He has just been listed. The guy is called for training. But because it has been given value, it has been given recognition. Us, a guy thanks someone on Twitter for making the team. Even the guy is asking, wait, which team? Where have you seen the announcement? Yeah. How about, everything, the way you treat everything is the weight you give it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you want to get sponsors, give you more value in these things, grow the brand. The national teams should be a brand. The league should be a brand. These properties should all be brands. And the more you give a brand value, the more you get out of it.
Yeah.
Because to be honest, these companies are looking at ROIs. But to go away from commercialization as the second, the third is I did talk about accountability itself. Bit there, and not just funds, but being accountable to the strategy that you've come up with all the clubs involved and all that journey. But the fourth to me is development and growth. Yeah. And I'll give an example. When you see Phillip Kiboijana, where do you attribute his journey of rugby to?
I don't know.
Adrian Casito.
Cobs, Smack,
Magomo.
Pirates.
Do you a national team anywhere?
No.
You anywhere there?
No.
You get. But what are we doing to assist the clubs in development? I've used this example because it's one of the things that amazes me. I don't know how this man does it. Richard Lumu. The man posts on a Friday evening or Saturday morning, and he's training like 3 junior sides. He's greatly tapped into a community there, and he's doing a good community thing. But how do you help such a guy? The last window, he was the shopping basket. It's testament to what he's doing. I think there are almost 5 out of 10 top clubs bought from him. Players. He lost a lot of players. But also, in other engagements, I've found out that you find the second team has as big a spend as the first team.
Yeah.
It comes close, but most people sponsor the first team. Yeah, fair enough. They are not aware of the championship and size, but how does the union work to help clubs on this growth? Yeah, and you've not yet gone to the whole get into rugby, the age grade that is not as active as it should have been. The schools, I'm happy schools is happening again, but we have less schools now than we had in 2016.
Yeah.
And
how we bottled Coca-Cola, which was such a great sponsor.
How do we package and get such guys back? But again, imagine not having a university league. Imagine what a university league would do, sad. A varsity league.
Yes.
You know, people who are not scared and are still finding their footing and are showing off. You will probably watch the most entertaining rugby at that level.
Yes.
Yeah, but also then how many people do we lose in between there?
Yes, the gap between schools and club.
Exactly. You find only 3 out of Magomu's winning school team are in club rugby. Where did the others go? Where the guys who played with Chimono, where did they go? Yeah. The kids playing now, where are they going to go after the senior six? They have to, if a club doesn't take them, then it's death. But also even the guys in clubs still, we've seen many give for the uni, like Desire in UCU and a couple of his friends. But imagine, don't you think they would want to play in a league, proper university league in Uganda with, But it's that development path, and then also how you take it out, and not just the men. There is the women. How do they get more games? And I remember in a discussion when watching women's rugby, one of the things that came up is how many games they play vis-a-vis the opponents they face. How do we get also the women's teams to grow? How do we get the women to play more games? And when you see people like Lone Africa, in fact, George Mbalu, I think he deserves a big shout out, sponsoring the Black
George
Pearls.
Mbalu, he's also a very great. Every time I meet him, he gives me a word or two of encouragement about the podcast and about the drive that we're trying to do. So he is very passionate about the game, and not only from the men side, the women, and now to see what's happening with the Black Pearls.
Yes,
we really appreciate.
I think and that's why I was saying earlier, I would say rugby is in a good place, much as it has its challenges. I think Black Pearls having a sponsorship is a journey of women's rugby also growing bigger and better. And hopefully it can motivate other people to sponsor these ladies' teams and give them more. But then away from the women, still to development, how do you work with the regions? There's something as I looked up in my research, and it's being done by World Rugby. And if at the level of World Rugby they can do it, it's not a case of funding only, it's also strategy. So they are calling them regional hubs. So instead of going all out, you pick 2 that are working and you develop those in a way that they develop those around them. So you might say, for example, Northern. How do you say in Northern which one is the most active in rugby? Gulu. You say, okay, you sit with them, you say this is the 3-year plan for this hub. Gulu, in a year you should be here. When you get here in year 2, this is how we move out. And working with them, they say now those 2 are the guys ready. Then you keep growing like that. Otherwise, you spread yourself so thin, and you find that for 10 years, your best case forward for we are good for regional is you have an RDO. But is it adding value? What is are you also helping him do his mandate? So it's those 4 pillars that really I would say I'm putting forward. And if people believe in and can add to, it's that's interesting. I wrote to a club requesting for a meeting, and I said I need to meet you guys to take you through what my thoughts are for this and my manifesto, but also I would like to take the opportunity to hear from you on what the challenges are. And someone said, but why would you want to hear from us? You're not yet president. I said, yeah, but it's good to know because you share this knowledge. Then the next place I go, I say, this guy's had this challenge. We need to look into it. And then as I talk, it's also a food for thought. And like I mentioned somewhere, let everything in the election be an idea that the next exco. In fact, one of the things that it should do is sit and say, what are all the ideas that were out there? Where are the brilliant ideas? How do we put them in? This example is wild, could get me in trouble, but there is an election where one presidential candidate spoke of scrapping graduated tax. And the one who won wasn't the one who mentioned it, but he scrapped it. So at times you have to use these platforms to put ideas out there that it's not only about us, the candidates. And then I tell everyone, it's about the sport. Everything you do in a way that who wins at the end of the day? The sport. At least you might not win, but your ideas could win and could be used. Yeah.
How are clubs receiving you?
It's been positive so far. I don't know if some you didn't expect many to tell you will give you, will not give you. But I've had very engaging conversations, and which is a good thing. Okay. Where it becomes a discussion, than you just pitching. It's, a proper conversation. And already that's a win. And I can say I'm already learning some things as well. Okay. Especially when it comes to the challenges they have with development. That's something we hear people say, but you don't know. Every time they would say development of the sport, you think new players coming in. But you forget there are guys who are struggling with the guys they have in. How is Pirates 2 dealing with Sailors? How is Hippos dealing with the second team? How do the ladies team deal with as well the junior side? There's Thunderbirds, there's Eagles. How is Eagles managed? There's all those challenges that you have to look at.
Yeah. In about a minute, paint for me a vivid picture, or it may not be very vivid, but paint for me a picture on how you think if you were to get elected, your first 100 days would be in office.
Not my first 100 days. Our first 100 days as an ExCom. I really want to emphasize that, in fact, one of the biggest challenges I have is I'm saying how in the first days do I get everyone to understand that it's about working and winning as a team. Yeah. It should never be Mr. President. It should never be the other VP, this VP. It should be Uganda Rugby Union ExCom. Okay. And in there, bring in the clubs as well. But in the first 100 days, to your question, is the focus. So there's two things. There's things you need money to correct. There's things you don't need money to correct. But the things you don't need money to correct will help you get the money in. Because also you can't go money first. So it will be about listing those things. And there's the bare minimum. Yeah. One, gaining trust of every stakeholder through communication, as you mentioned. Yeah. Two, understanding the challenges of the clubs and knowing the journey you're walking. So in the first 100 days, if we have, it won't be the full structure, but if we have a semblance of a structure, if we have a strategy agreed, even if we've not started, but have the strategy agreed, which has involved every stakeholder, and know your journey, and then you have better communication and have built confidence and trust. Yeah. That will be a win for me for those 100 days.
Okay. So I have a bunch of things that I want to know about, and perhaps we can just peruse through them in 30 seconds each, I think. Schools rugby. One of the conversations we've had here on the podcast was, and one of the frustrations with one of the Fat Cats, Caesar, is that there is little to no attention being given currently to schools rugby. But then on the final, you're going to see someone, one of the authorities, come to give out the trophy.
In a jacket.
But but no one is giving support. What are your thoughts about helping schools rugby?
And that's the whole ecosystem I was talking about. Yeah. So the USRA guys. Yeah. Where do they fall in your 4-year strategy? Yeah? And how do you help them? And that's why you need all these guys at the table when you're doing that strategy. Yeah. So schools should be, where are we now? How do we work to better it? Where do we want to be in 4 years? How do we bring in more schools? How do we improve the competition? How do we, even things like, I've been following the conversation about playing for club and for school. Yeah. And interestingly, they are tying it to a tournament manual that has probably not been reviewed in the last 4 years. And you say, why? You get? Because also, let's be fair, everyone playing in school it might put me in a sensitive place with what's going on. But the truth is, I would also feel bad to tell a kid, don't play because you're playing for a club. Is it his fault he got that good?
It's not his fault. Is it not his fault?
It's not his fault. But also, how do you balance it then? How do you get more kids in clubs and them in school? Because at the end of the day, it's also good for the sport. Yeah. So, but again, that's why I'm saying it's tied to your strategy and journey. I'm an ardent believer in the entire pathway, not just schools. So, age grade up to schools, up to uni should be a strong focus.
Yeah. I'm sure, yeah, you've talked about structures, and structures will ideally help the whole path. But if we were to look at women's rugby,
Mhm.
one of the things that hurt me the most is I think it's a four lady league.
Mhm.
How can we help women's rugby? Just I know there's a lot that needs to be done, but just kick off to really ignite things.
Mm.
What can be done, and how can we also increase the number of teams so that they can have more competition?
I think, meanwhile, interestingly, women were the first to make the World Cup. I think in all sport in
Exactly.
this country, not
Something
just
that
rugby.
Helen spoke about and saying that the union dropped the ball from that. They should have built on that.
Exactly, and that's where I has headed. Ironically, that is a strong platform that we should have built on then, because the belief was there. But we can still get there.
Yeah.
So me, it's about when we are discussing everything.
Yeah.
Let's discuss the women as well. Yeah. So if you are talking about expansion of the league, for example, how about you look at it wholesomely? We are not saying go and form teams for women tomorrow, but we can say, if you say in 3 years we need to be here, what do we need to do to get there? That's why I said everything is defined by strategy. How do we make clubs understand? And you say, look, the top clubs, your 10, what would it take for us to help you form a ladies team? Where do we meet you halfway? Already you've increased, and we've seen it from sport, even internationally, how they've grown. This women's team has been off the back of all the men's teams having that side as well in their structure, all the clubs having that in their structure. But it's not something you want to dictate. It's something you want them to understand. It's something you want them to see. Because even when we are speaking age grade, when you look at actually quarters kids playing, there's many girls and boys.
Yes.
So where are those girls going to
What
go?
happens?
They need to
girls,
play
yes.
somewhere. So we need to start creating those platforms as well in the pathway.
Yeah. I think that's brilliant. Then I'm going to talk about partnerships.
Mhm.
One of the biggest conversations that is had currently in rugby is when there are partners that come on board, there is scrutiny, how much money, this and that. Then sometimes when there are no sponsorships or partnerships, then there's also a conversation about that. How do we, as rugby, hope to maybe get more partnerships, more sponsorships coming in, especially since we are known as a niche sport, not like the kind of sport like football is, which can command and show numbers on table that would ideally excite brands. So how do we approach that?
So that's where I talked about value, because every partner, every sponsor wants to be tied down to value. I remember one of the partnerships I signed in Chadondo was UMC, which as Happy later grew to also work with the union. And to one of your points is, I remember people saying, how much are they giving us? And I said, no, they are our medical partners. And someone said, yeah, but how much are they giving us? I said, they are our medical partners. And I couldn't answer it at the start.
Yeah.
But a year down the road, we could sit and say, UMC has given us service worth 50 million we would have spent on.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's not that all the time it's money.
It should be
At
monetary.
that point, while we were struggling, we said, what are the key issues that players deal with? And one of it was the rehabilitation and medical and what. And we said, if we have that point, before you start, like an example that happened last weekend, saying, guys, let's collect money and do what? Where is the place you take that person as you sort all that? Because part of the agreement was, if it's something that needs excess, it's okay, we can still receive and rehab and work on them under the partnership as we figure it out. Do we make a payment plan? Do we, all that came into play. Yeah. But you see, they came in and eventually also worked with the union. But those, if you keep such a partner, and as you grow in value, they also start seeing the worth of it, and eventually it can come in plus cash.
Yeah.
So I think partnerships are key. And me, it's identify the areas, for example, medical, transport, nutrition, and things like that, and hospitality, Travel, is the team traveling? Do we have if we signed with Uganda Airlines and they said, look, wherever Uganda is going to play, we'll take them. It's as good as you are going to pay for those tickets either way. You channel that money to something else. But also to sponsorships. We want to start selling the brand, not selling the budget.
Exactly.
If you get the difference.
Yeah.
This is what we need for this tournament. No. This is the brand value of this tournament. And for you to get involved, these are the tiers. And what will you benefit out of it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Yeah.
And the guy seated on the other side is already thinking, yeah, this is good, but it starts with all that, and it's from being accountable as well. And that's why I said at the end of the day, that is key, because it's what gives you consensus, it's what gives you license to operate. Because even the guys you're speaking to about brand growth, if it's you're not going to convince them about that when this ends, there's all these issues they would be hearing. So it's as a union, first of all, how you brand yourself, how you present yourself, then your properties, how you brand and present them, and off that is the partnerships and how you can leverage also off those partnerships. You could get a sponsor who is giving you little money, but that sponsor has the ability to bring in. I saw people laughing at Total's money when it sponsored Sevens, which I thought wasn't right. But having a person like Total on board is also good. Maybe they're understanding the journey. Maybe they said, let's come in, then let's see how we grow with you. But also, who can come in because Total is in? Are we looking at that? There's many angles.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. One of the things I've noticed is with the URU committee that is under, or you should say the president's team. There's been a lot of, can I call it reshuffle and reuse, or recycle and reuse? Someone comes from this position to that position, someone comes from that position to this position. Rarely seeing a lot of new faces in that circle. Is that what we would expect from your team? Maybe we can say maybe because it's experienced, tried and tested, or do you hope to have your own army of enforcers?
So people have been asking me, who are the guys you're running with? And I say, why? And it went to a conversation I hinted on when I was announcing, where I was told, when I met the president, why don't you go for this position? And I said, look, how many people do we close out? Because we are locking positions.
Exactly.
Who do I close out? Because I'm saying they've promised me in 4 years it will be me. If it's me in 4 years, well and good. If it's not me, well and good. If it's me now, well and good, I do my shift. If it's not me, well and good. Hopefully someone else more capable than me. And what is happening is I have people who are calling me now because they are running, and they are giving me their ideas and letting me know as well. And I'm saying, welcome aboard. And me, what I'm saying to most of them is, look, I'll be happy to work with if you're the best person. And where I'm helping, I can. For example, I meant to go down to one of the regions on the weekend, and I called a couple of them and said, look, if you're free, come, we go. And tell the guys as well. And one said, so are we the same team? I said, no, we are Team Rugby. So let's go, preach, let them listen to everyone. I would even happily invite my fellow candidate and say, I'm going this, can we both go? You jazz, I jazz. I mean, what's the harm in it? It's not like we are telling them it's going to be secret ballot, first of all. So the person, whether they tell you or not, at the end of the day, it's their decision. But it's so when it comes to the team, I don't want to say I'm going to lock down a team, or I want to reshuffle this team, or I want to meet. The key thing is people, because people deliver on everything. I just hope we have the right people in the right places. And that's the task that the voter has. That's the task that the club reps have. And that's where they should also be answerable to the people they are representing. But let me ask you a question that's going to show you when I talk about accountability. Please name for me the current ExCom. It has been in 4 years.
I know like 3 people. And even those 3 people.
And you are a rugby regular.
Yes.
You are a guy who runs a podcast. You know a lot about rugby, the ins and outs of rugby. You can only name 3 people on the ExCom. What does that tell you?
I don't know. It's I don't know. Are people owning up to their positions? Are they forthcoming in the way they are working?
At what point are they answerable? You said, I
Yes.
promised this, I'm doing this. Why haven't they come to say, I came to do year one, I've achieved this, year two?
Yes. End
That's what
of
I'm
year
talking
report,
about. Yeah.
report card, things like
Why
that.
do we only meet at an AGM where we are squeezing 10 things in 1 hour and the main statement being, guys, due to time, we need to move on from this. And then you jump on to the next. Then a debate starts, guys, let's be cautious of time. Now we need to move on to this. You know, I really think it's being unfair to the sport, to the game, and to all the stakeholders in it.
Okay. And I think, I don't know if it's my last, but for now it feels like my last question. Before my quick fire. My last question would be from one of the podcasts we had, actually the women's podcast that we had with the lady fans who were very, very energetic. We need to have them back again.
Yeah, Kosha and Anatai, at least I saw those. Worked with them on LOC.
Yeah.
Very interesting character. I actually loved working with them. People were shocked when I named them on my team, but I knew what they would bring.
Yeah. How can we get more fans to be part of rugby? Many people say that rugby is a cool kid club, a few people. How do we get more fans to be part of rugby? And then, just as like let's say B of that question, in particular, how do we get more women to be interested in this sport?
So part A, more fans. Yeah, we need to market the sport better. So I gave someone, and that's why I've been talking about things that cost a lot, things that don't cost, things we can do within. Social as a service. Yeah. Social media has changed this landscape so much. But how do we use it? How do we use it? It's a media to reach many at a way lesser cost than when you had to do print, had to do TV, had to do radio. You don't even need to do all that. But how do you reach people? And importantly is, what is this message that will catch them?
Yes.
So how are we packaging these things? And recently I gave an example of, I feel like it's one of the things I pray I sell to the ExCom to want to focus on, to do as one of the priority things at the start. Every message in the last 10 or so years, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, when we are starting a season, has talked to the man in the arena.
That's true.
But he is in the arena. Year in, year out. He has put his hand out. At what point are we going to talk to the person that the man in the arena needs? At what point do we do, for example, a campaign and we sit and say, okay, we have a sponsor, part of the sponsor's support is media and what? And drafting campaigns, and we say, look, we need a campaign that is going to support clubs to grow their fan bases. And this is how we are going to run it. This is how comms will go out. This is going to be the motivation. This is going to be the activation. Why does every activation have to be kick and chase?
Yeah.
Why can't the activation be the person who brings most new friends to a game wins this? How do we start being intentional about some of those things?
Yeah.
Because we have the entertainment on pitch. You can't lie. We have it and it's getting better. We are in a league where we don't know the top 3 who is taking and the bottom 3 who is going. Yeah, with 6 games to go. It's exciting. It's being talked about. Yeah. But how do we motivate those people to come and be part of it? Because the other guy in the middle is doing his part. Definitely. Yeah. So it's also, that's why I'm saying it's about being strategic. It's about where you're targeting. But then also, as you bring in those funds, is women's rugby. Yeah. Part of the things I think is use the platform that you have to show that they're also there. To me, like this weekend, there is Cobbs Heathens. I'll correct it. There's Heathens Cobbs. At Chadondo.
Yes.
Yeah.
Chadondo.
These guys, they might kill me. Platinum credit Heathens. And the Cobbs at Chadondo. To me, and okay, now the ladies are off. They finished their league. But use the same example. Yeah. At the start of the season. Imagine first game, Pirates hosting Heathens. The curtain raiser was the ladies' games as well, the top 2 sides. Do you see what you've done there?
Yeah.
You see what you've done there? You have the crowd, and they will see this exciting game they also probably didn't know about and will talk about. You have the TV there. You have the press there. You have everyone there. And you're talking about 2 of your biggest games in rugby. 2 top men's side, 2 top women's side. When do we start doing that? Why are we having incidents? You have women at midday, then the junior side at 2, then the main guys at 4. Yeah. Why, if it means, is it a question of you sit and discuss, should we push the league weeks longer? Should we, some weekends, women skip some and play on some, but to give them priority placing, where they'll come in at 2 before the biggest game at 4. We need to push this women's game more in people's, because there are people who don't even know it's there. There's a girl who'll watch, like if you had said Pirates Heathens at 2 p.m. is Black Pearls hosting Thunderbirds. There is a girl who would have watched that game and become a player, I can bet you. Could have said, how do I be the person they are cheering on that pitch, this massive crowd, this turnout. Yeah. But then it takes some of these challenges you are suffering with. You have coaches who don't watch women's games. Then you've also helped him watch the game. You start ticking many boxes.
Yeah, that's very, very interesting. So, jumping into the quick fire. My first question of quick fire. What is your thought, or what are your thoughts about Zeno Owora Othieno, who is standing for VP Technical? What are your thoughts about him as a rugby person, as a human being? Keep in mind, this is quick fire, so whatever you have to say, you have to.
As a rugby person, very experienced, very been in the game long, has the knowledge. As a human being, Zeno, you don't know what to expect, when to expect it.
Are you saying it's like France, French rugby national team?
France might even be up when it comes to Zeno. You have to be careful. Even when he starts speaking, you're not sure where it's headed. You have to be. You saw Dungo on the space recently. He said, no, I want to let Zeno continue. I might walk into my own insult. So,
best rugby moment you've ever experienced?
Africa Rugby Sevens.
Yeah,
Africa Rugby Sevens.
Really something great.
I took a month to recover.
Really?
The fatigue, the excitement, everything in there took me about a month to recover.
What do you hate most about this game?
The under-prioritization by the powers that be.
Okay. Very, very interesting.
NCS, government. Yes, they are coming to the table, they are improving, but rugby has always been seen as that side thing, and yet it has taken this country places. You look at the Olympics, the stadium singing Uganda, it's amazing. Commonwealth Games. I don't think we've had a stadium sing for a national team that way before. Never, I can bet it.
Yeah. And my last one would be, actually not my last, my second last one. Describe for me your rugby Saturday. We always talk about rugby Saturdays. What's your routine on a rugby Saturday from the time you wake up?
First of all, lately there is my kid playing soccer, which is also going to have to start playing rugby. But he's beginning to love watching. But go to the club, usually raid Mama Kanyanya, though I sit down at the office at Chadondo, really on the shed, not where she does from. Eat my chigere, catch up with a few people, watch the game, banter after the game, have a couple of Nile specials. Yeah, it's typical rugby day.
Okay. Heathens Cobs. Your prediction.
Heathens.
You want to give us a score?
Yeah.
You want to give us a score?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
15-12.
Okay. Interesting. Well, it was a very, very interesting conversation. And we could have had you for possibly longer, but perhaps we'll have a part 2 with other fat cats around to bombard you.
Please.
Yeah, but at this point, I think I'll let you give your closing remarks. Then, we'll let you go about your way.
Yeah, thanks. First of all, it's really been an honor being hosted on the Fat Cats podcast. The senior council one time had threatened to invite me. Were having a drink at King's Park. So I don't know if the power of the drink took or waited for the invite. I said, what did I do to this man? So when it came in this time round as excited, I'm honored. But also speaking to the election.
Yeah.
And it's a plea I've been making. One, to all the candidates, leave Bala talk. Let us sell the sport of rugby. Let us talk to the nation and beyond about rugby in this time. But most importantly is, let us have clean election, fair election, and be open to adopting as many of the good ideas and working with all the people out there we believe are good for the sport. Yeah.
That's great. For everyone that has been with us, it has been, I think it's norm now. We usually go past an hour with our conversations, but we thank you for always sticking through and watching, and we hope that with every conversation that we bring you, you find the value. We appreciate the feedback from all those that tell us that you're always learning something new about different people and for all the different aspects of the game that we bring to the fore. We appreciate you for that. As we always say, social media platforms, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and our big primary platforms, that is YouTube and the audio. Please follow, subscribe, send us your feedback, and let us know. Always connect with us. Be a part of the Fat Cats rugby family, and we'll see you next time. Cheers. Thanks for listening in. Share with us your thoughts from today's episode, and don't forget to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and subscribe to our YouTube channel.